Let's get started. Today's presentation will be a Q&A discussion between Michael Smith, Senior MOM Consultant at ATS Global, and Evan Sloss, Director EMEA at iBaseT. On to our first question. So, most people will agree that you need metrics to measure success. The challenge is, how do you get started? So, Michael, you want to give us an intro perspective?
Sure, yeah.
That first step.
Yep. So, I think the thing that's going to vary is what success looks like. So the reason that people implement these systems. So for some, it may be to improve throughput, improve quality, increase asset optimization, or to enable their workforce better. So I think the first thing is to kind of get the project started and implemented, and start capturing that data that's relevant for the goal that you're trying to accomplish. But also be aware that the implementation of a MES system isn't the end, and that those goals will change, especially as you start capturing that data from the shop floor. You'll start to see maybe the problems that you thought you had aren't your biggest issues. So now, for example, if you're accurately capturing the actual scrap or the cost of quality, maybe that's a bigger hitter. So I think it's about analyzing that data that you're capturing, so you can get a real understanding of where you are, and then working on focusing in on your problems and targeting those.
That makes sense. So kind of continuing on with that theme, and maybe Evan, you can provide a perspective on this. How could you move that strategy forward?
Well, I guess MES is a really good first step. It's the foundation for identifying and collecting information, but you also need a way to capture that data and bring intelligence to it, and allowing you to have like real-time access. So, gaining that real-time view of the factory, we have a solution called manufacturing intelligence that allows you to do that. And what it does is it gives you the ability to answer a very simple question. And that question is, are we having a good day today? Because most MESs don't allow you to know that for several days or even weeks. And if you've had a bad day today, you've probably had one every day since, until you find out. So really being able to have a real-time view of what's happening in your factory is mission critical.
That makes sense. Maybe you could continue with this and talk, if you have the MES and you have that real-time intelligence capability, how is that going to have an impact, or does it have an impact on quality?
Yeah, absolutely. So, once you have MES and then you have manufacturing intelligence, so you're getting that real-time data, that real-time information, then the next step is to close that loop on your manufacturing processes, and to take a new perspective of controlling quality versus managing quality. If you're controlling quality, you're controlling the outcomes. If you're managing, you're only managing a problem after it's already happened. So by controlling that quality, you reduce your costs, less concessions, you're most likely delivering on time, and the key thing is you're pleasing your customer, and that's what you're in business to do.
That's great. Yep. Michael, maybe you could expand upon that. Evan's talking about the product quality. Are there other aspects to quality that could be considered as part of this?
I think, so integrating the other systems as part of that closed loop manufacturing that everyone's talking about, I think it improves the quality, not just of the product and the data, but also of the design So feeding all that data back then enables you to get a clear view on how your design is manufactured, what problems you're encountering on the shop floor, your adherence to schedule. So all of those kind of higher level aspects can then be informed by this data you're capturing on the shop floor through your MES system on your manufacturing processes, and then you can start to improve that. So not just making better parts, but making a better schedule, having better visibility on your production, and being able to meet your commitments to your customers.
Got it. So it's really more than just manufacturing, the implications of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next question. So what else can be done to grow this program? Maybe Michael, you want to continue there.
Sure, yeah. So I think a MES or MOM program, I don't think it ever stops. It's never completed. You can always improve and expand your manufacturing. So to me, it would be to kind of start capturing. So depending on that roadmap that you have for your MES implementation, you would probably start out quite small and then start spreading out in terms of the different aspects that you're capturing. So enriching those data collections from the shop floor, integrating to smart tools, integrating to machines. So really spreading out the reach of the system, capturing more of that production data on the shop floor, and also feeding more accurate data. So I think to continue that growth of the program, I think is key to kind of define this roadmap and tackle it in steps and stages, to make sure that you can stay on track and not just kind of follow the next trend or the next fad.
All right, sounds good. So let's talk about some of the metrics that should be evaluated as part of this program. And maybe we could provide, Evan, you could provide some examples of metrics that can be used for that.
Yes, thanks, Gordon. Most people look at, cost, when it comes to ROI, and really quality is probably more important, especially in highly regulated, complex, discrete manufacturing. Quality is key, to build it right the first time. A lot of times, highly regulated, complex, discrete is nuclear, it's satellites, it's fighter jets, it's ships, and you don't have a lot of leeway for quality issues in that world. And so, quality has to be really the most important part of that ROI. Yeah, cost does make some, has some bearing, but to be honest, poor quality will cost you way more than the cost of deploying a really good MES. I would definitely say quality is the key.
Great, thanks for that clarification. And any perspectives on comparing that to paper-based systems? I mean, beyond the obvious, anything you want to add on with regards to that too, to conclude that?
Yeah, I mean, paper-based systems are, it's outdated. It's so much can go wrong. Paper can get lost, torn, you can spill coffee on it. There are certain environments like nuclear where they don't want paper. It's seen as a potential fire hazard. So, to move to digital makes all the sense, and more importantly, things can update a lot quicker and easier digitally than you can by printing things out. As far as things like Microsoft Excel, depending on the statistics you read, I read recently something like 92% of all spreadsheets used in business have errors in them. And I would not want to trust the manufacturing of highly regulated, complex, discrete products to something that's error prone as Excel and even paper.
Good point. Good point. All right. All right. Well, let's shift over to you, Michael, and let's talk a little bit about the uniqueness, shall we say, of the goals. So, is it better to have your metrics that you're measuring be standardized, be the same as everyone, or should they really be unique to your needs? Or maybe you could talk a little bit about the pros and cons of measurements in that regard.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say it's a bit of both in terms of the fact that so some of your metrics will be standardized metrics. So some of the popular ones are kind of OEE, asset utilization, first pass yield, things like that. And I think they're good to kind of baseline where you are and where you were before the MES implementation, and you can start to understand that. I think often with the MES implementation, it kind of shows the reality of the situation. So we often see people's metrics go downhill after a software implementation, and then they go back up to where they were and then beyond. So I think just one thing is to be aware of that initial drop. It isn't the fact that you've got worse, but that your data's got better. So that's kind of good in terms of standardized goals. But I think on top of those standardized goals, which you can use to kind of compare yourself to your peers or other similar industries, you need to have some unique goals based on the objectives that you as a business are trying to accomplish. And those goals are really going to come out of probably the data that comes out of your MES system, that understanding of where you are and where you would like to get to. That can then help you to define those goals, and then you can start to move towards those with that roadmap that you set out to accomplish your goals. And those goals are going to change as you accomplish them. You won't necessarily be constantly focusing on throughput of a particular bottleneck. Maybe you'd resolve that problem and your metrics change and your focus changes. So I think there's something to always keep looking at and reassessing.
Yeah, that makes sense. As you fix one problem, a new problem emerges as being more important to focus on the changing of the time frame. That's it. And how about Evan? Maybe you want to provide a perspective on project metrics versus business outcomes, maybe ideas on how to best balance that.
Well, I speak a lot about business outcomes because projects are really, they're a means to an end. It's when you do anything with MES or PLM or ERP, it's to improve your business. It's to give you business outcomes. So you have to find a way to align these projects with those outcomes. And a lot of times I see a disconnect with companies that are trying to, at the executive level, have their objectives, but then further down, people are taking decisions around PLM or ERP or MES that don't really align with those executive levels. So I say you got to find a way to balance that and make them work together.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. All right. Well, it looks like that brings us up on the 15 minutes. How quickly time flies. So thank you, Evan and Michael, for your contributions, and thank you to the audience. Hope you enjoyed that, and have a good rest of your day.